It's rock and roll!
Welcome to Look It's Rock and Roll, the podcast. Today we're going to do a quick review, which is going to be one of the formats that we present in the future, allowing various members or groups of members to do reviews of current product, not digging back into historic catalogs, not doing best of selections, but just a quick review of something that's been released recently that we think is worthy of drawing your attention to. And in this first one, there's a new girl box set out called Wasted Youth, 6 CDs, released in England. I'm not sure if it's available yet in the United States, but certainly you can order from amazon.co.uk and pick up a copy. I think I got this and another box shipped out for less than $10, so it was certainly an economically viable question in terms of getting the 6 CD set. This CD set includes quite a bit of material that's been previously released. And if you've not picked those up over the years, then it's a great way of getting all of that stuff in one shot. Obviously, Wasted Youth was the band's second studio album. And if you're not familiar with Girl was the band that included guitarist Phil Collen, who went on to fame in Def Leppard, and Philip Lewis, who went on to fame in the fantastic LA Guns. And, there are obviously other players who are involved. Gerry Laffy, Simon Laffy, his brother, came into the picture later, and then a succession of drummers. Can't remember the name of the first chap who was on the My Number single in 1979, Dave Nagari or something to that effect, and then he was replaced. I think Pete Barnacle, Bryson Graham, and then there was a third drummer, and I lose track. That's not what this is about. We're strictly talking about Wasted Youth, second album, released early 1982, I think February is the date. I'd have to look up on Copyright Records what it was. I remember buying this back in the 80s on vinyl. I was in Liverpool, and going through the record racks back in the days when stores like Penny Lane. Part of my history with bands is that many an album has come into my realm because of the cover. This thing has two things going for it, for my taste: a neat logo and a cool image. That was a badass looking band photo. So 14-year-old me, I think it was like 1987 when I got it, saw a menacing photo of the band and a cool logo, and then I think it was a used copy, so I opened it up and I saw that it had Phil and Phil, and I was like, wow, I didn't know it. I was just getting into rock, reading Circus Magazine and Hit Parader and whatnot, so it was an early part of my musical education. Like I mentioned, these have been released or reissued various times over the years. My last copy of Wasted Youth was actually a Japanese CD issue from the 90s. Long gone because, I just don't hold on to these things very long. But comes in a box, details on the back, and I apologize, I'm in a dark place while I'm recording this, and that's just how it's going to be. Most recently, Wasted Youth's come out on Rock Candy, and it's been paired with the Live at the Marquee 1981 show. So that was just a 2 CD. This box is a nice opportunity to add all of these live recordings in particular back into the collection. Of course, Bryson Graham drummed on the album, but it quit, so Pete Barnacle was simply credited on the album credits because he was the member of the band at the time, or it's vice versa. So what you get in the box when you open it, nothing special. You get a single poster sheet with the credits, and I should probably look on the back to see which band member is being credited because I always get it wrong. And your album lyrics on the back, and the god awful, that is horrendous if they were looking to fix their image. The 2 singles, of course, Through the Twilight, which was picture disc, backed with McKitty's Back, and Old Dogs. which was limited edition picture sleeve, if I recall correctly. That's all you get. That's a bummer. That's probably my biggest criticism of this box, is you get 6 CDs and you don't get liner notes that you can read through while you're listening to all this stuff. So each one comes mini kind of LP style. The original artwork, very basic CD print on all of them. CD 1, Wasted Youth, obviously, produced by Nigel Thomas and Girl. What can you say about it? It's a tougher album than Sheer Greed was. Sheer Greed is a little bit more glam, a little bit more pretty. This one kind of more biting, tougher. Like the guitars a lot more on Wasted Youth, but it's also more diverse as well, which is probably a little bit of the problem with the album and how it was received at the time, that it's all over the place in terms of style. There's a lot of heavy stuff. I mean, the title track, fantastic song to this day, one of my favorite Girl tracks. And Through the Twilight, again, kickoff song, is very tough, but then paired with a kind of Duran Duran image picture disc, just leaves you shaking your head at what people are thinking. Arrangements, they're really good. Again, you see a band maturing. I know in some interviews they talk that they're a bunch of posers who were just having a lark and not taking it very seriously, but I think the material speaks otherwise. They're certainly developing as songwriters and as musicians. Phil's getting more twiddly, which is one of the things I love and hate about Phil. And Philip, vocally strong, powerful, always great. I always liked his voice, but I really only listened to everything through the first 2 LA Guns albums, and then I checked out. Yeah, the songs kind of run the gamut from the heavy to the contemplative to the boogie filled, fun romps. Probably a bit too disparate, as I mentioned. CD 2. This was Killing Time. Originally re-released or released in 1998 in Japan. I still have my original. That's one of the few CDs I do still have, because I was hoping to get a little bit more money for it. This compiles B-sides, outtakes, demos. So, right off the bat, you get Juliet and Nutbush, City Limits, which were 2 songs that were planned for the 2x2 EP, which was going to be 4 songs released by Jet mid-1982 as the band was falling apart in terms of Phil leaving for the Leopard gig. But it's got a lot of the studio versions of songs that the band performed live in their set from 1980 through 1982, so that makes it a must-have. It's also got Love is a Game, which is, of course, the non-album single that was released in, I think, 81, so kind of in between albums they put out. Russ Ballard song, trying to, I think, get a bit more commercial appeal, so it's on there. And then, of course, the B-side, You Really Got Me, which was on the Hollywood Tease single, is included. So, there's a ton of great stuff on here. Some of the stuff's produced by Nick Tauber, who, of course, did the early sessions with Def Leppard in '79, which, I like how he produced this style of band back then. The other songs that, of course, were for 2x2 EP were Killing Time and Naughty Boy. Killing Time is just a criminally omitted song that never made it to an album, which is a real shame. If Girl did a reunion, and when I saw Phil in San Francisco in, 2018, the first thing I said to him, do a Girl reunion, please. And he was like, hey, I just spoke to Philip, a few days ago. Whether or not that ever happens, I don't know. Again, it's one of those very, very niche things, maybe on a rock cruise. If Def Leppard was doing a, theater gig on a cruise, they could bring LA Guns and maybe some of the other guys and do a Girl reunion in that setting. It'd be very cool. So, as I said, I was thrilled when that came out in the late 90s, as it was the first real archival stuff that I had heard from Girl. And again, everyone's story is different. You may have heard other things. I'm just going by what I know and a few things that I've written down from old copies of Sounds and an Enemy when I was writing the Def Leppard books. So, I think that pretty much covers it. Standouts for me on this are kind of White Prophet, again, performed live, Aeroplane Food, you either get it or you don't, and Big Night Out, which I think they used as an opening track on some of the live recordings. So I thought very strong material, worth having. If you've not heard it, you probably listened to it up on YouTube, but if you can get the box, certainly buy the real deal. Okay, CD3, Live at the Marquee Club, 1981. This has been previously released probably several times. I'm not going to count them up on Discogs. It was the first of kind of the archival live stuff to come out, 2001. And again, recently it was repackaged with that 2 CD edition of Wasted Youth, which is, fine and dandy. Recorded live, London, obviously, England, October 23rd, 1981. Kicks off with Ice in the Blood, Icy Blue, bunch of unreleased stuff that you can hear the studio versions again of on Killing Time. Icy Blue is the standout on this CD. And there are 7 live versions of songs from the Wasted Youth album, which again, anyone who listens to studio albums often likes to hear the live versions of the band performing those songs. Otherwise, what really is the point unless it's played live? You get 3 of the songs from Killing Time on here as well, so great inclusion in the box. If you're going to be putting everything in the kitchen sink out, make sure you got it. Disc 4. CD4 is, it's detailed as Live in Tokyo 1980. Nice artwork on this one. I believe it's from the November 26th, 1980 show. And again, when I did the Leopard books, I didn't go as deep into the Girl kind of touring history as I could have. I think this stuff's making me want to go back and clean up and fix a lot of what I wrote about Girl at that time. Again, many years ago, mostly built out of, the British rock mags of the era. So a lot of stuff that in Leopard tracks in particular probably needs to be updated and corrected. Anyway, the context is lost without the liner notes to read along with about, I don't know shit about this show by just holding the CD, apart from where it was and when it was. 16 songs live. It's been released before as Live in Tokyo 1980, the official bootleg. So I think it was distributed with copies of the Girl DVD, which I still don't have a copy of. So I don't know if that one ever got kind of official silver pressed release, but that one's worth tracking down as well if you're a Girl fan. When this came out back then, I think I read that one of the former band members didn't think the quality of this particular recording was good enough for it to be commercially released, so it was pulled at the time and replaced with another, Live 81 bits or Live 82 bit CD. The way it was detailed back then is that it was recorded by a fan who'd been standing by the mixing desk in Japan. So, audience recording. Now, Japanese audience recordings are notoriously good and consumable. But, again, there's a vast difference between that and a soundboard where you have more control over the mix and the instrumentation and the overall feel. So, again, different feel from a professionally recorded gig. Still, if you're expecting a soundboard, you're not going to enjoy it as much. But in this package at this price point, which is $30 and 23 quid, something to that. You really can't complain too much. But it's also an excellent illustration of the classic lineup in full flight. I mean, it's raw, it's rough, but it really shows Girl in a very positive light, considering the circumstances of the recording. So, the next CD, CD5, Live at the Greyhound, 1982. Again, and just to show you another CD print, pretty much all follow the same format. So, fortunately, all my discs were the right versions on this. So, this originally came out in 2013 as a bonus to Gerry's Just a Little Blurred album. Another great live recording of the band. Is the lowest quality of the 5, or of all the live recordings included on this particular set. But what it lacks in clarity, it makes up for with the pure balls of the performance. There's just that that magical energy that sometimes a band dials in a performance where everything is clicking. This was clearly one of those gigs. So there's power and energy throughout, the 14 tracks. There's 3 from Sheer Greed, 5 from Wasted Youth, and 6 from Killing Time. So this set is abundant with the unreleased kind of rare stuff that was, who knows, being road tested. And I haven't validated the date on this for whether that's accurate for when it was recorded or whatnot. So it was back in the days when bands actually played their new shit live, and it might change and it might develop, but it certainly got road tested and validated that they could see audience response to new songs. Too often nowadays, bands are afraid to play new stuff precisely for that reason. Iron Maiden's a great example of a band that will bludgeon you with their new stuff. You're going to go to an Iron Maiden show on their new album touring cycles, and you are going to get a few tracks, and it's not always, it again depends on the person, but when I saw them for the last tour they did in California here, and I don't even remember, Book of Souls, thank you, Ghost opening, there was the Red and the Black. I was like kind of nodding off at one point, and I loved the song, but just hearing it live after hearing other long songs was a bit torturous. But back in this day, and with a band like this, which had short, snappy 2.5 to 3.5 minute songs in general, you would get a lot of really cool stuff. So CD6 is the UK Bootleg's 1982 disc, and as I mentioned, that live show that was replaced with another disc was replaced with this one. So it's labeled completely wrong on the packaging, and that's on the back of the packaging. I never did check. It's wrong on the back of here as well. So tracks 1 to 4 are from the Hammersmith Odeon Theatre. These were originally released as bonus tracks on Live in Tokyo 1980, the official bootleg, in 2006. They were also on the independent CDR, like I mentioned, that this replaced. It's a great soundboard, though, this Hammersmith one. With Big Night, Overnight Angels, My Number, and Standard Romance. Really cool performance, very good. Wish there was more of that. Don't know what the story is, of why it's just bits and pieces of this. Is it all that survived, or is it just that they didn't want to use all of the shows? So I'd love to know the rest of those circulate. So apparently it's from a few days after Wasted Youth came out. Tracks 5 to 10 are from the Liverpool Empire. Not as smooth recording as the first show, but again, you get the Girl Live vibe a bit better. And it starts with the raw Wasted Youth, and then you get Killing Time, Doctor Doctor. Yeah, good shit. Very good shit. 2 songs are detailed as being from the Birmingham Odeon, 17th of January 82. The tracks 11 and 12, Nutbush City Limits, of course, the Ike and Tina Turner song, and Killing Time. They're not. They're the same as the 2 so-called bonus tracks. They're all demos, which is fantastic. I have to do an A-B comparison with the stuff on Killing Time for 3 of the songs, but you do get a new demo, track 13. In this case, it's Lucky 13. It's Madame Corona, which, in this day and age, with the coronavirus going around, is kind of funny. But, again, another good song. Who wrote it? Who gets the credit for it? Philip. So, okay, final thoughts. This box set is a great way to get all of these releases in one shot. Again, they've all been out, and as I mentioned, I got mine on Amazon UK for £23, which is $30 American. And I think it was an extra $8 to have it delivered, and it came because I ordered another box at the same time via DHL, and I had it within 3 days. They're selling up on eBay, I think $20, 25. This will go up on eBay. Criticisms, again, lack of liner notes, lack of a proper booklet in there, and I understand it's a budget release, so those are additional costs that are obviously the first things often to go. But I would love, if anything, for there to be a little card in there with the digital download code for liner notes in PDF format. It's something I think people can do. So that you can read along all these things. And I know that there were other notes included in the original releases of many of these that were worth reading. So that's the biggest criticism. The future. I don't know if there's any hope for a Sheer Greed box. That's kind of been out with a single live recording attached to it. I want the original demos. They did a video demo back in '79. I want the original version of My Number, and I can't remember if I did an A-B with the single versus the LP version, whether it changed or whether they just kept it with the original drummer or whatnot. There's still Osaka 82, which comes after Phil left and Pete Bonus came in to complete the contractual obligations for the band before Philip went on to his next band and the others went into new areas of exploration. But it's a great time. Early 2020, you've had a nice girl box set. You've got multiple Def Leppard boxes coming. Obviously, the early years, 1980 Live, which, when I was, again, researching the Leppard Tracks book, and I saw a report that they were recording their show in Oxford for a possible EP, I was like, whoa, I'd love to find a copy of that. Well, when did that book come out? 2007, 2008, 12 years later. Get the whole damn show and not an EP, so that's going to be very exciting. A couple of great resources that you can go online, and I'll throw the links for these into the notes on the YouTube version. The Bailey brothers did a great interview with Gerry. Very, very well worth reading. Great history to some of the releases, great history from his perspective of what happened in the band. Very balanced, very appropriate. So, that's been out there for years. Those guys did a great job on that and other interviews. And then there's also a Legendary Rock Interviews interview with Gerry Laffy as well, which again goes into some of the same detail because it's impossible not to repeat, as I have probably done multiple times throughout this episode. And, I think at some point, Look, It's Rock and Roll, the podcast, will have to do a best of Girl. And, come up with our 14-song anthology CD that we think best presents this band to the rest of the world, even though there is a great anthology CD that basically has everything they recorded on it already. All right, that's it. Girl, Wasted Youth, box. Get it? Don't get it? I certainly enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you for watching or listening to this episode. Be sure to subscribe to us, like us, or even leave us a review. You can find us and join the conversation on Facebook.